So I am Bridget, I'm your host today. I'm the Marketing and Growth Manager here at ReLab, and you've all seen Frances Valintine, who is very inspiring, and we're super excited to have her on today. Frances, a bit of background on you. You're the Chief Executive of AcademyEX with 25 years of experience in professional development, specialising in technology and strategies for businesses to adopt. So, and I guess I just wanted to call out your remarkable contributions and your prestigious award, the Companion Order of Merit, and your unwavering commitment to education, technology, and preparing the workforce for the future. So welcome.
Thanks, Bridget. Great to be here.
Yeah, so in this episode today, we're hoping to take your insights and any wisdom that you can share with us from the broad range of industries that you work across and your expertise in AI, and see how that could be applied to real estate agents, agencies, keeping in mind, I guess, like, what is the significance of AI and how can we use it to enhance our customer experiences and outcomes, and what guardrails should be considered?
Look, I think the starting point around the risk we have right now is that if people don't get their head around technology and have a really open mind about what comes next, there is a real risk that we will face what we call with people who do know will climb a ladder and they'll pull it up behind them, and people who don't understand and haven't embraced technologies, and I'm talking specifically here around artificial intelligence, that they will be left behind and the gap will just become bigger. It's a little bit different than the days where the internet first came about, where it was a very slow process. Like, you could be an early adopter and get dial-up, and you could actually start using the internet, create your first web page. And 10 years later, it was still okay if you hadn't done that, because it took basically somewhere around 15 years for every business to have some form of web presence and to actually commit to that as a form of marketing channel. Generative AI is very different. When it came out, it was already ready. The technology to use it was already in people's hands or on their laptop. And so the division is much faster. So the people who are embracing and adopting are really moving ahead at pace. And the people who are sitting back and saying, I'll just see what's going to happen here, actually potentially will find themselves quite lost within 12 months.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I know in the audience today that there's a huge range of adoption. So there's real estate agencies and agents that are considering it but haven't taken the leap yet, and then there's ones that have fully embraced it, and some managers have even made it a process in their daily practices. So I guess, what tips would you have for people already using it to optimize it, and for those that haven't started yet and need to take that plunge?
Well, let's maybe just start by just talking a little bit about what generative AI is, because a lot of people just think about ChatGPT. So ChatGPT came out in November last year, and most people had probably heard of it between November and probably March this year, and have tried at some point putting a prompt in, asking a question, looking at a response. Now, the wonderful thing about ChatGPT is, unless you're paying for the paid version of ChatGPT 4, it's probably free. And actually, it's a huge amount, it's an abundance of large language models. So it has a data set that is bigger than any data set we've ever been able to draw information from as humans before. So they've always been closed data. Now we have an open data set that you can actually tap into. If you look at ChatGPT as just an indicator of what's possible there's more than thousands, literally thousands of tools now, some specific for the real estate industry, some for marketing, some for doctors, some for, take your pick, your industry, there's a tool for it. If you look at what it can do, a lot of it comes down to the prompt that you ask it to do. So if you're asking it to write a listing, a really detailed listing, the more information you give it up front, the better the response is. So it's sort of a human-machine type interaction, as opposed to asking a question like you might with Google. And so the way people use these generative AI tools is really important. And so we have to shift away from thinking how we might in Google, literally asking a question and it brings up a website that may be able to give you the answer. A generative AI is taking all the data from every known accessible website that's ever existed. So if anybody on this call has a website, it's already been scraped by OpenAI for ChatGPT. And it's been scraped by many, many other tools as well. And so what that means is it's taken all the information that's accessible to the public. It's also taken information from social media channels and various audio channels and podcasts. It's really just populated these huge data sets. Now, what that means is when you ask a question, it looks back across all the information it has and puts forward the most likely next answer. And so if, for example, you're sitting here in Tamaki Makaurau in Auckland and you're writing a listing for a 4-bedroom bungalow in Mount Eden, what you'd be thinking about doing is saying you want to write a real estate listing for a 4-bedroom bungalow in Mount Eden that has these features, and you would add the features and you would talk about who you think this house is most ideal for. So you're giving it as much information as possible. The response then is going to be taking what potentially will be a grammatically perfect, creative response to something that maybe would take you some time to write. So it's sort of a shortcut productivity tool, but it's certainly, you wouldn't want to give it a small amount of information and then hope it's going to create this creative genius response, because it just won't do it in the way you want.
That's such a good overview. And there has been that feedback of you've got people that are using it and that are just going at pace and not checking the work that it puts out. So it's such a good call. And
yeah, look, maybe I can just add on that. There is a real problem with generative AI, that it does what we call hallucinate. And you may have heard this term already, that it literally will create fictitious features. So you may tell, even with a really strong prompt, you may say it's a 4-bedroom house. It will say, this bungalow in Mount Eden has a 4-bedroom house with a tennis court, and it has no tennis court. And so you do have to look, because what it's doing is it's looking across all its data about 4-bedroom bungalows in Mount Eden, and it may say, well, actually, most of them have tennis courts. So therefore, I'm going to add a tennis court, even if it doesn't have one. And so it's not perfect. If you go to the paid version, the ChatGPT 4, you'll get a higher quality response. So like most things, if you're paying for it, you're going to get a better option than the free version. So if you're doing this for a professional output, I certainly suggest you pay the $38 a month and get the benefit of the higher quality option.
I've heard an analogy that it's like having 1,000 interns. Like, you've got the manpower and the research, but you do need to guide them and check the work and constantly improve
great analogy.
Process. Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool. So I guess it would be really good to touch on that maybe the tension and the fear around AI replacing individual roles versus the productivity gains it could get from using it in a team setting. And I just wondered what your thoughts were on that and how everybody could better navigate those situations.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to understand is there's going to be a big transition away from certain components of people's roles over the next couple of years. And so it won't be that AI will take entire roles. For example, we will still have lawyers in 2 years' time, but we will use lawyers in a very different way, because if you take the skills of a generative AI data set, it's really good at discovering, for example, case law, and it could tell you which way to argue a case or write a contract under, for example, New Zealand employment law. So then you may not ask a lawyer to draft from the first draft. You may ask them to review a generated contract or a generated approach and ask them to spend 1 hour and not 10 hours. So that is an example of where the productivity shifts and the behavioral shifts, when people start to recognize that there are some things that generative AI does really well. So if you don't have the knowledge of AI, for example, in a year or two, actually, when you look at your competitors who do, it's actually going to be the competitive advantage, because there'll be a lift in productivity, personalization, but also the ability to respond much faster, 24 hours a day. To, if you've got a client, for example, who's looking for a property, and you can have AI scanning and searching and finding, and every morning sending out to those individuals automatically the types of properties that have just come on the market that might suit them. It's going to be well ahead of someone who's still in a manual process of looking at, what listings have come in, checking for kind of suitability, reaching out to the customer, taking up a lot of time. So we're going to see this across all industries, and certainly real estate is going to be no different.
Yeah, and I really liked what you were talking about in our preparation around even some of the advancements in AI in terms of photography and how that's presented to customers.
Yeah, I think this is sort of another good example. So a lot of you may have tried things like Midjourney or DALL-E, which is text to image. So we also have text to video. So just both of them. I'll talk about text to image at the moment, which means you can write a prompt and say, for example, I want to create an image of a back garden that has a balcony and it has a veranda, or it has a patio area with an umbrella with some gardenias, and it's got it's got a croquet court. Who knows what's in this garden? And they will produce that image. And so part of what you could be doing is thinking about presenting a sort of a future state of a house, not just how it looks today, but you could put the parameters of the house and images of today's house and actually super enhance it. And you could say this is an enhanced image using AI, but it's putting it with a different decor. It's putting it when maybe it's run down and needs some love and attention. You could show what could be achieved if you put some money into it. Change the kitchen, or remove the fireplace, make it more open plan. And so we already have the tools that do that, where you can change plans and you can put in imagery and you can actually tell a story of the future, where some people who don't have that imagination about what a property could look like if it just had a little bit of investment made into it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it can be pretty daunting when you're selling a property to go through the effort of trying to make it look good for other people's eyes when you're so used to living in your own home with all your pictures and you've only had it one way.
Yeah, I think it's, and I think also for homeowners to be able to show them what a stripped out house would look like. Saying, it's almost side by side, and I'd say, look, here's your house full of all your trinkets and all your lovely things you like. But let's face it, these are not emotionally connected to a viewer. Here's the same house. Let's take all those images out. So a lot of tools already give the ability to remove things from images. So you could take out the pictures and the artwork and the kids' drawings on the fridge, and you could, do the things and remove the old cushions and just show the owner what that would look like if they could just take some things out of their property to make it more neutral. So I think it's all those types of things where AI will prevent the person. You don't have to go actually and get a staging expert to go in and do that for you. You can put those images on the website. You do have to, of course, disclose that these are, altered by AI. So that person, when they turn up at the house, will go, hang on, it's really cluttered in this house. How come the images look that way? You need to be honest. I mean, that's really important. But you could almost have a sort of a portfolio of images, ones of today and the actual sort of aspirational images of tomorrow about what that backyard might look like, or how you might be able to clean up the front lounge and make it look much nicer than it is today. So there's all those sorts of tools will really help sell for those who don't have imagination.
Yeah, and you've touched a little bit on trust and authority, and I think that's going to be the most important thing for people as we progress and things rapidly evolve in this AI space. So do you feel like workplaces are doing enough to prepare for AI and get everybody ready for what's coming?
Look, I talk to a lot of different sectors. At the moment, I would say the majority of people, and I spend time here in Australia talking to companies, and from professional service firms to legal firms to construction firms, whoever I'm talking to, or sectors, most people are still playing it's dangerous, don't touch it, too risky. In education, it's all about plagiarism. I think people are taking this, if we just ignore it, it will go away. Now, I can tell you right now, in the last 30 years, there's been only 3 major innovations that changed business. One was the internet, and I talked about that briefly, about how long it took for people to adopt the internet. The second was the iPhone in 2008. And so, significant time has passed since the iPhone came about, when we first had a device that enabled you to get on the internet as you moved around. So a mobile internet connectivity, which really, at that point, a lot more people moved into e-commerce. A lot more people built much more complicated websites and did a lot more online. And since 2008, there's really been nothing material in business that has completely changed the ground we walk on. For me, as a technologist, generative AI is bigger than both of those. because we don't need any new tools. We don't need to invest in a laptop, a computer, a mobile phone. We literally just, it's literally the overlay. It is, it's like a software you just need to access. And because it's free or low cost, the barriers are almost non-existent. And so the impact of those, particularly a younger generation who just are already jumping on board and saying, hey, this is my future. I'm going to be using, this is the tools of my time. It's the calculator that I was given, my first calculator back in primary school. I felt like I was the winner, because suddenly I had it's kind of the calculator moment of 2023 and beyond. And it's only going to get bigger. And every major company, Microsoft, Google, Apple, every one of them are playing in the space. But on top of that, you've got XAI with Elon Musk. You've got OpenAI with ChatGPT. You've got all these new, really technical, highly funded companies jumping in the bandwagon as well. So it's like game on across all these technology companies, which means, we're all going to have it whatever way we want it. It's going to be integrated into every tool, every platform, every social media account we have. We're going to see it everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it? So I guess what advice would you give to real estate agents or companies that are hesitant to adopt it due to those perceived complexities and any concerns they have around the ethics?
Yeah, so one of the things I do in my day job as the CEO of AcademyEX, working with professionals who are learning, is we talk a lot about confirmation bias. And it's one of the probably the most critical things to be aware of as an adult working in the industry is if you only surround yourself with people who are just like you, they will reinforce your views. And so many industries, in the real estate industry, you're surrounded by real estate agents. And actually, if one or two influential people say, look, don't worry about this, it's not going to be a problem, carry on as usual, you probably believe it and you're not going to go and then challenge it. If you stepped out of that conversation and jumped in with a bunch of engineers who had just left university and they're talking about how they're using it, or an architect, how they're using generative AI and actually developing new designs, then you start changing your context. So it's really important that we don't just kind of get the confirmation bias of people who go, oh, look, it's fine, just leave it for a while. Surround yourself with people who are already using it. And I know in real estate here, in New Zealand, there are already numerous companies doing it. So find those people who are doing it. Find the companies who are supporting the real estate industry. Say, how are you doing it? What can you do for my business? It's far better to be informed, even if it's a little bit scary, than it is just to say, I'll just kind of wait and see my turn, give it another year or two. The other thing is spend time on international real estate sites. Don't just look within this country. Look, do the Silicon Valley kind of comparison. What's happening in the Silicon Valley that is probably 3 or 4 years ahead of us, but actually gives you the indicators of what's to come. And I do that across all sectors. You go to the places who there's huge amounts of investment already pouring into this. And so you've already got whole sectors that are advanced on where we are here as a country. And so you get a pathway forward. It's not like we don't have to be the frontiers. We don't have to be the true innovators, but we do need to be fast followers about what it is that's going on.
That's awesome. And I guess as a wrap up to this, I'll send out a recording, but if you've got any recommendations that you could give us, Frances, offline, I'll send those through in terms of organisations in New Zealand where there's meetups or products that you think would be beneficial to real estate agents. We'd love to get those and share them out. And I guess it's also really important to talk about the risks of AI. So how can we still ensure transparency and accountability in the AI systems used by real estate agents, especially when it's in critical decision-making processes?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of talk at the moment how AI is actually going to be the savior to some of the issues we have in deep fake. So even though AI is what creates a deep fake, it's also the tools that we'll be able to discover what is real and what's not. Okay.
What's a deep fake for those that are getting?
Okay, so a deep fake is basically something that portrays to be real. So it could be a person. So for example, you might go into social media, you see what looks like me, sounds like me, but actually somebody has created a sort of a digital version of me, and I'm talking in a way that is uncharacteristic or saying something. So suddenly you might see a political leader 3 days before the election coming out with some racial slurs, and actually it's so out of character, but you cannot tell the difference because today the ability to create an identity that looks so much like someone, and just with a few seconds of someone's voice, you can recreate their voice. And so the deep fake is basically, portraying themselves as being something that's real that's not. On top of that, it's also the conspiracy theorists who, create theories which, are built completely fictitiously. So they think in a way AI may be the solution as well as the culprit, because it will have the ability to go in and say, looking at how it's developed, what is in the background of that video, is that real? How many of those pixels were created in an AI environment versus in a filmed environment? So actually, in some ways, we're sort of relying on AI developing simultaneously for the better and the worse at the same time, and kind of countering each other. So there is a lot of fear. I have to say, New Zealand right now does not have any formal AI guides or guardrails. So most other countries in the world or regions have already developed some very robust ways of when and how you can use AI. And so the European Union at the moment is leading the way. So I think it's we're going to be probably maybe a year away before the local guidelines will start to come out about what you do and when you have to tell people what's real, what's not. So I think at the moment it's about good common sense. It's about saying if you're going to write a listing, and make sure you treat it the same way as you wrote a listing yourself. Don't over-fabricate the features. Don't use the influence of clever copywriting written by an AI to really extenuate things that don't have the features that are not there. If you're doing social media campaigns and getting a generative AI to write the campaigns and to post them onto different social platforms, check them. Make sure that they are truthful and they reflect the reality. And so you still hold the same accountability. And I'm sure in the court of law, it will stack up in the same way. You can't blame an AI for getting something wrong. It is still your responsibility to make sure that all that you do is honourable and ethical.
Yeah, and I guess there's that sometimes the tone is not great in AI, like it can be too salesy just on a small scale of that. And then through to if you're using it in chatbots, people will actually want to know when they're talking to a robot versus when they're talking to you.
Yeah, chatbots are an interesting one because you can literally now develop a chatbot in an afternoon. Because what you do is
That's crazy.
So the days of training chatbots have kind of gone. But actually, these large data sets, what we call large language models or LLMs, you can actually now API them. So you can basically access these data sets, sometimes at a very small fee, a few cents, sometimes free and totally open source, and sometimes paid at larger amounts. You can add your own data from your company. So you could take all the information and inquiries and listings, and you could put all of your listings and data into a data set, integrate it with a large language model, and actually turn it on and pretty much get a pretty amazing response. And I have to say, I personally, a really great chatbot that's actually based upon a large language model, in some ways I would prefer to have them answer a question than to have a person answering a call who has only the information that they retain in their mind, because often they're limited to what they know. And so as they get better, more and more people will move towards chatbots because they'll start to say, actually, this chatbot is really helpful. It's given me the answers I need. And if, for example, you landed on a website that had 1,000 house listings or 10,000, I have no idea how many you have, be able to say, please bring to the surface the houses within not just a price range or a suburb, but have these sort of features. But you could actually talk about how a chatbot would say, what would you recommend a great suburb for a newly arrived family from South Africa who's got kids of these age groups, and one is neurodiverse, and you can talk about the things, and actually the chatbot would say, these are the great suburbs that you should consider. What is your price range? So you're actually getting the help that perhaps you wouldn't have as the sort of the native knowledge if you didn't live here. Or if you were trying to think about where's the best investment location, where are getting the best returns. You can't get that currently in a website, but you could with a great chatbot if you have the information put in there. And then, of course, people are going to your site because they're like, that website tells me the things I need to know about the best investment or the best time of year to sell my property or the most likely buyer for my property. So you'd actually start being able to ask questions far beyond what you can today.
The level of personalization that it's unlocked is going to be crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, look, Paul just commented, could the chatbot be fake? Well, technically they are all fake. I guess the one thing about generative AI is it doesn't have a consciousness. A lot of people have got a little bit confused between, is it actually, there's been talks about chatbots proposing to people and getting into falling in love, and, all of us is just based upon predictive text. And so chatbots technically are fake because they are only code. That all they're doing is surfacing an algorithm that tells you the answer. So you do need to say you're talking to a chatbot, not a person. And sometimes you'll have a chatbot that says, hey, I cannot answer that question. Let me get a person for you. So it is still important to make sure the person understands. There is also risk the chatbot can go rogue. It may give bad information. And that will come back to the quality of the large language model and the data you put in. So if you put, bad data in, bad data out. So one of the things around anything, if you scrape off, for example, social media has the very best of humanity and the very worst of humanity. You would not want the contents of Facebook or Twitter to be polluting your large language model, because then it could have all sorts of weird biases. So you do need to look at the quality of the data you're using.
So if you're wanting to leverage AI for your communications and you're a real estate agent or agency, how do you ensure the quality of the data that's being used for that? So it doesn't go rogue.
So your data is the best data. And so that means you probably need someone in your team. If you don't have a data person in your team, you need to probably either contract one in or find a data company. And what they would do is say, where is their data that might be a customer database? You would anonymize it. You take out all the people's names, for example, and all the customer feedback. You take every listing that you ever had access to, that data. You capture as much as you had. So depending on what kind of business, you may have an abundance of data or less. I suspect in real estate, you actually have quite a lot of data if you've kept it all in a way that you can bring it into one single source. And then you need to go and actually buy a database or access a database. And so there are many different places that you can do that. So one of them, for example, is called huggingface.co. I love developers. They always come up with this. So huggingface.co is an open source large language model. If you go there, it will have all sorts of data sets. You may need someone technical to go and help you the first time. You can go in and look for data sets in property in New Zealand, and then you might go down to real estate, and you can actually look at the quality, and it might say we have 10,000 lines of data about New Zealand real estate. And a lot of this, again, is free, but then you need someone to be able to integrate that system with your system. So Hugging Face is a pretty good place to start. There's also GitHub, which is the repository of all things digital and data-wise. But again, these are quite technical. So if you're sitting in this call and you're a developer, you're like, oh yeah, GitHub, I use it all the time. If you've never heard of GitHub, you probably need someone to help you to do this, because there is an element of technology and data that you need to have. So the website is so huggingface.co is the first one. So just like hugging, a person, face isn't a face. And then the other one, GitHub, GITHUB.
I'll put that in the follow-up comments as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Just had a question through. Hey, Frances, what low-code platform would you recommend to non-developers keen to learn AI?
Good question. There's actually so many no-code and low-code options now that it's. I think the best ones, you still need to have a little bit of technology. So Meta GPT is a really good option. So Meta, owning Instagram and Facebook, have an option where you can actually build a really comprehensive website, including all the technical documentation and everything through an API with them. So that's one. But I would say you really do need to have someone with you who kind of looks at the options, because there are these low-code, no-code website development tools. But for someone who's going into creating a website for housing or personalization of storytelling to customers, you want something a bit bigger than that, but better than that. And to Daniel's point, you looked at the website, it's a new language. Yeah, this is a new era. The new language is completely, I'm sitting here as someone who's been in technology all my life and still go, this is a new language, but it's the language of the future. And I think this is the the slightly overwhelming piece of it. You don't need to get to that level, but you do need people in your team who do have that skill. I would really say if this all is a bit intimidating, and don't feel bad if it is, it's all a bit like overwhelming, just start by using ChatGPT. It's the most accessible, most straightforward. I mean, there's lots of other ones. There's Bard and Bing and a whole bunch of other kind of mainstream Google type tools as well. If you start with ChatGPT, what I would recommend, the way you start with it, is use it like a tutor, but almost in reverse. Don't ask it a question. Start by saying, let's just use an example. Say, for example, I'll go back to the 4-bedroom bungalow in Mount Eden. What you might do is go into ChatGPT and say, I am a real estate agent in Mount Eden selling a 4-bedroom bungalow. What would be the questions that the clients looking to buy this house are most likely to want to know? Please provide a list of questions that I can answer in my listing to help sell the core features of people buying 4-bedroom bungalows in Mount Eden. So then it gives you a list of questions. And then you look at the questions and think, have I answered those questions in my listing? And if not, maybe these are features I can add. You could go back to ChatGPT and then say, please write the copy for this question. But it's about almost reversing it away. And, you know, I talk a lot to people who say when they enter information or a prompt into ChatGPT, they say, please and thank you. They're like, please, ChatGPT, can you? Just remember they're not. So there's a human aspect which people respond to, but it is very, very different from Google, which is literally giving you a shortcut to people's websites. Google does not give you an answer or the ability to write text and things. It says, of all the websites we've indexed, you put in your request, we'll send you to a website, which we hope will give you the answer you need. So it's a very different tool. So you should play with it a lot until you understand the differences. To answer Daniel's question here, with privacy changes that Apple and others following suit are implementing, do you think having a pixel is still relevant or something an AI take over the space? Yeah, look, so pixel tracking, for those who are in marketing, you'll probably know that you often will put a pixel on your website or on a listing and you'll be able to follow where the viewer goes to, and it gives you the ability to build a profile. There's a lot of tools now and a lot of ways around not having pixels, because in the particular European Union and under GDPR rules, pixels are not recommended or not allowed. And so you have to think about other ways of building profiles. And so I think there's going to be a lot more in the future where you ask your customer more questions up front of what they're looking for, and you actually use data, not tracking, to find the appropriate types of properties for them. Because actually the tightening up on privacy is going to get tighter and tighter as some of the rules going through Congress and going through the European Union right now come into play. We're a little bit in the Wild West right now when it comes to privacy and ethics around AI. It is important to know that if you enter private information into ChatGPT or any regenerative database, that information may surface again somewhere else. So don't go putting in personal information of your clients. Don't go putting in information about where people live, because actually somebody who said that could then turn around and ask ChatGPT, what is the address of, Tim Brown in Mount Eden, and actually potentially could surface it. But it could also surface some of your own internal strategies. It might be your business, and they'll ask, some of your competitors might say, please tell me the business strategy of insert real estate agent firm. And they go, oh, based upon you've already shared it with us, we'll tell you what it is. So you do have to think about it as a public set. It's not private.
That's such a good call out around personal information.
Yeah.
And I guess we're wrapping up near the end, so please send through any questions that you have. And Frances, what would be the most exciting thing that you're looking forward to with all these changes in AI on a personal front?
Look, I'm really excited by the potential of a lot of people doing some very menial work. We'll be able to move away from some of that really menial, repetitive work, which nobody enjoys doing. I think it's going to enhance. If you take on the utopian side of AI, it's about the discoverability of new treatments for things like cancers and poverty. We'll be thinking about new ways of distributing food, because we'll be able to run information about the logistics of crop production and crop kind of distribution across the world, things that are really going to materially make a difference. And hopefully also with climate change, that some of the solutions will come about because AI will be able to see things that humans cannot, because they can run simulations at a level that humans would take years to do. So I think there are some really good things. I am also equally terrified, no doubt about it, because there are so many things that AI could do even today. So I'll just give you one quick explanation as we wind this up. Google for many, many years were playing in AI, just go over the last 10 years or so. And one of the things they did is they had a row of, say, 25 robotic arms, and they were all identical robotic arms. And all they had to do is, in a huge basket in front of the arm, was filled with lots and lots of small toys. And what they asked the arms to do is to be able to figure out how to pick up a yellow ball. And say, for example, a year went by and it picked up different toys, but it actually never really kind of could identify a yellow ball. And then one day the head of Google walked past and saw that the siren went off because the AI arm, the robotic arm, had picked up a yellow ball, shown it to the camera triggered that, woohoo, well done. The very next day, all arms were picking up yellow balls all the time. That's all they were picking up. Because once you teach one, once you get one AI know it, the knowledge is across everyone. So it's not like one-to-one like humans learn. It's actually like if we were sitting on this call and there were 4,000 of you, everything I just said, all of you would know and retain forever. And then you would have your knowledge and that would retain and go. So the growth, the exponential nature of where it might go is of everyone's mind who knows about AI, because there is a tipping point when AI could outsmart humans. We just don't know when that is. It could be a year away or 100 years away. We're at the tiptoeing into this going, when is that happening and how will we know if it starts to outsmart us?
So we've had a few questions. I'm so conscious we're at time, but lots of people have been really interested in what you've been saying, and there's so much to digest. They're wondering how they can learn more from you.
Yes, there's a couple of things. There is an abundance of what we call online courses. Here at AcademyEX, we have one particular program called the micro-credential for 10 weeks part-time, I think an hour and a half a week online, and that's called Disruptive Technologies. And that has a really big component of AI, but it also talks about other things you need to know about, like VR and AR and data in the same program. I think actually the last one started yesterday, so it may not be another one this year. But also online, if you look up artificial intelligence for real estate courses, you'll probably find that the likes of LinkedIn Learning or Coursera or Udacity or Udemy, there's a whole bunch of these online education providers will probably have some as well specific for real estate. But if you want to keep it local, reach out, have a look at AcademyEX, and by all means, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Knight.
Thank you, Frances. Really appreciate you coming on the webinar.
Thanks, Bridget. Lovely to be here.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.